Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and I am super excited because finally I get to introduce you to the Easy Wonder Die number 1 add-on. And I've been talking about this for a while now. Jamie and I have been testing it and we feel it's finally ready to go into production. And so pre-orders will open up for the add-on. And as well, if you didn't already grab the Easy Wonder die, this is going to come back on pre-order as well. So for folks who are interested, you can pick up just the add-on by itself, whether or not you have the Easy Wonder die, because I think you'll find that you can actually use this standalone as well. And I do have a class that is also optional, and so you can add that to your purchase if you'd like. And for folks who missed out on the Easy Wonder die number 1, the first couple times it was available for pre-order, it's back now, and so you'll be able to get both of them together if you want. So let me tell you a little bit about the add-on, how it was designed to be used. I'm not going to actually craft with it in this video. I will just show all of the elements that come with it, how it was designed to be used, and I'll show you some projects that I've made so that you can actually see what it looks like when you use it on a card. So the easiest thing to start with, perhaps, would be to actually show the Easy Wonder die first, so that you can actually see what all of the die cut elements you get when you cut your Easy Wonder die. I designed this based off of my mini one-sheet wonders that I make available to my channel members for free, and in my mini one-sheet wonders, I have a printable that you can download that shows you how to cut a single sheet of 6x6 pattern paper and use all of those cuts efficiently to create a number of cards. And so in my mini one-sheet wonder, I also suggest some card layouts that if you make all 4 of these cards, it actually uses up all of those pieces that you can cut. So let me just show you all of the various different pieces. So the way that the die has been designed is that it's actually just shy of 6 inches square, so that it makes it really easy to line up. And you can see there's a little bit of a border all the way around. That also makes it a little bit easier to die cut this through a 6-inch die cutting machine. And I know that there have been a couple of people who have reached out to me, and I think maybe a couple people who have reached out to Jamie as well. And they've mentioned that they were having some difficulty with die cutting this. So if you stick to the end, I'll have some tips and tricks for you so that you can more successfully get this to cut. But for folks who aren't having an issue, because I didn't have an issue until I was made aware of it. I didn't even know that there were challenges, but that's because I use a Gemini electric die cutting machine, so that cuts through everything. Now, when you run this through, you're going to get all of these different pieces. So as you can see, lots of different basic shapes that you can use, some banners, circle, square, rectangles of different sizes. That's what you get with the Easy Wonder die. Now, with the add-on set, here's what you get with these. You're going to have 4 different size squares, 2 different size circles, a couple of different sentiment banner dies, a word die, the word hugs with its shadow layer or bubble layer, and as well some really sweet hearts of multiple different sizes. And these are like hand-drawn hearts, so they're not symmetrical and they're actually mirrored, so none of them are identical to one another. Now, these two sets have been designed to actually work together, and there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of mix and match and use these, but here's the square that comes from the Easy Wonder die with that circle aperture. You can lay this on top of the largest square, and you'll have a really nice matte border all the way around. That's one look that you can create. You can take the second largest square and then put that right over top, and that gives you the effect of even hiding that inner circle so that you don't use that aperture at all. And now you just have some nested frames and multiple mats and layers. So that's another option. And as well, if you wanted, I don't happen to have the piece cut out, but you could actually take this circle piece, and this circle piece is larger than this right here, so you could lay it over top if you wanted to have a smaller border all the way around of your square. But similar to how that stacks up, there is a smaller rectangle or a smaller square here. So if I take the small square and I lay it on top of the third largest, I have that really nice border. I take the smallest square and that's going to stack on top here. Now the nice thing about the add-on is that it all has the same stitch border detail as the original Easy Wonder die. So one of the reasons why and I don't know that I've ever mentioned this before, but one of the reasons why I actually started with squares and circles as sort of the big, primary shapes of the Easy Wonder die is because squares are easy to mat. You can just, using a trimmer, it's just straight cuts. So pretty easy to hand cut your mats and layers for the squares and for rectangles. Circles, relatively easy, not for hand cutting, but if you have a nested circle die set, it's likely you'll be able to find a circle that's like large enough to give you a nice border all the way around, or small enough to give you, to layer on top and still have that nice border. Because a circle is a circle, the aspect ratio, just like a square, is 1-to-1 height to width. So that's relatively easy as compared to, say, an oval, which some ovals are tall and skinny, some ovals are short and stout. So with rectangles, you have a very precise aspect ratio that it needs to kind of conform to in order for the mats and layers to have a nice even border. So that's one of the reasons why I started with squares and circles, but the addition of the add-on die set gives you the perfectly spaced borders if you were to stack them all, and as well it gives you that really nice stitched border detail that's consistent with everything that was cut from the Easy Wonder die. And then besides that, just to give you as much value for money for your die set as possible, we've added a lot of extras in the way of some sentiment banner strips, an actual sentiment or word die itself, and some little elements that you can use as decorative elements. So I feel like the add-on die, if you were a new crafter, is a really nice stash builder to kind of start your die stash, because you have a couple of different shapes, you have a couple of different sizes for each of those shapes, and you've got a little bit of everything. You've got your sentiment banner, you have a word that's very usable in a lot of different contexts, and then you even have some sweet little hearts that you can use as additional embellishments. And the other thing with this is that depending on the mini die cutting machine that you have, this will fit. All of these dies will fit through most of these dies, I'll say, will fit through most mini die cutting machines. Specifically, I have the Mini Empress, and so it actually fits, even the largest die will fit on the Mini Empress. So it works out really well that I can actually use my Mini Empress, which is small, it die cuts pretty quickly, to actually cut out all of the mats and layers for my Easy Wonder pieces. So let me show you some inspiration some cards that I've made over the last couple of months. So I have some cards that feature the original Easy Wonder dies. So these are some examples of the original sketch that is suggested on the back of your Easy Wonder packaging. And that just gives you an idea for, you know, how those sketches come to life as actual cards. So you have those sketches on the back of your packaging. This set of cards is actually what I showed in the introduction class to the Easy Wonder die. So you'll see how I make those if you pick up the Easy Wonder die introduction class. I have an advanced class for the Easy Wonder die, and I showed how you can use those very same die cut elements, but actually create different layouts. Because at the end of the day, these dies are really just stash building dies, and so you can really just see them as basic building blocks to create with, and you don't necessarily have to follow the suggested sketches or even the A2 size that those are suggested. Here I've used it on a larger card, a 5x7. So you'll see some tips and tricks in my advanced class for the Easy Wonder die number 1, and you'll see me make these 3 cards. On my channel, I also crafted recently with the Easy Wonder die, and I wanted to show just kind of expanding on that idea of being able to use the die on multiple different size cards and using the add-on for those additional mats and layers. I've created another set of cards, and so here we have 4 different sizes. We have a 6x6, we've got an A2, kind of close to the original sketch. This is a 4x6 card, and this is a mini slimline. And they feature a combination of both the Easy Wonder die and the add-on for some additional mats and layers. And here I've just used really the add-on and had fun kind of doing a little weird tiling of the various different size squares on this card. So there's a video for this on my channel if you want to check that out. I also have a playlist on my channel of Easy Wonder die inspiration, not just videos that I've made, but videos that my friends here on YouTube who have crafted with this die. I've invited them to add to that playlist, and as I've found videos, I have tried to add them to that playlist as well. Now, with the add-on, if you want to pick up the optional class that goes along with it, as a way to kind of learn how to use it as it's been intended to be used, as well as use it standalone, I show you how to make this set of cards. So here I've used the squares as mats and layers for an A2 card. Again, here I've used the mats and layers that you can get, but this time using the circle dies. And I followed the sketch of one of the sketches that was recommended on the Easy Wonder die, just to show what does it look like when you have, all the mats and layers on. And then I showed 2 cards in that class where I have made cards just using the add-on. So if you did not want to get the Easy Wonder die, maybe you don't have a large enough die cutting machine to cut that out, but the Easy Wonder die add-on, most of these I think will fit through your standard mini die cutting machine. It's just that largest square. I don't think all mini machines will fit the largest square, but here's a 6x6 and a 4x6 card where I've only used the dies from the add-on. So that gives you a couple different ideas for how you can use it as it's been intended to use in combination with the Easy Wonder die, but as well, I think that you'll find once you get these dies in hand that these are a lot of really just basic shapes that you can use, and there's some ideas to give you your creativity a bit of a jump start, but really you can just let your imagination, let your creativity take over and use them in a multitude of different ways. These are super versatile dies, and I hope that you'll check out the Not Too Shabby shop, and these will be available on pre-order, so you can check that out and choose the options that you want, whether you want it with the classes or not. And I hope if you do pick it up that you'll share what you make in the Not Too Shabby Facebook group or in my Facebook group, Crafty Fun with Friends of LV Handcrafted. Now, if you are looking for tips and tricks for how to get the Easy Wonder die to cut, I will go ahead and include a segment that I recorded with some of those tips and tricks and a demonstration of how to cut this using a 6-inch machine, because I haven't had a problem with my Gemini machine, but I do have a 6-inch Beercraft machine, so I'll demonstrate how to get it to cut cleanly through a manual and a 6-inch machine at that. Okay, so probably the biggest feedback that Jamie and I have gotten about the Easy Wonder die that wasn't positive is how to cut this big die successfully every time. Now, when the die gets designed, Jamie and I test it quite a lot, and I've never had an issue with die cutting, but that's largely because I have the Gemini electric die cutting machine, and I have the big one at that. So the reason why I say it's never been an issue is because, for one, the Gemini machine just has a lot of pressure, and so when it cuts pretty much through anything. In fact, I actually use a sort of my own little plate combination to reduce the pressure so that it doesn't, bend my dies and warp the paper and whatnot. Also, if you have a large platform machine, whether it is an electric machine or not, one of the things that you can do to really, really help a die cut successfully is just put it at an angle like that. And the reason for that is because when you feed this through your die cutting machine, the rollers in the machine, let's say the roller is, one of the rollers on the machine. The rollers help you to kind of roll this, kind of feed the plate combination through. And what happens is if you feed your plate in like that, you get what you've probably heard about, which is that speed bump effect, because that cut line there, it's raised, it's thicker metal than the other inside areas of the metal here. And so that's going to get more pressure. And just like a car rolling over a speed bump, when these rollers go over that straight cut line, you're going to get like a bump. And so you'll hear that and you'll feel it if you're manually cutting. There'll be a little bit of a thunk. But what happens, though, more importantly, is that when your roller is completely over top, what happens is that the most pressure your machine is going to apply to your die is where these rollers are. So everything under the roller is getting the pressure that the machine is capable of exerting. Now, when the roller is over a long straight cut line like that, all of that pressure is distributed along that entire length. So in the case of this die, that's 5 7/8 of an inch that has distributed pressure from the roller. Now, what happens when we introduce this at an angle and we feed it through more like that? So instead of the roller as it passes over this, instead of it passing over and having all of that pressure get spread out across this long stretch, all of that pressure is now concentrated in these smaller segments of the cut lines. And so that pressure is more focused on just those little areas, which means that it's going to be more successful and cut through all the way. So I just by habit, I always pass my dies through at an angle, and I don't even think about it anymore, which is why it just never occurred to me that that's like a tip to pass on. So that's one of my suggestions is to always kind of, especially if you have a large platform machine like this one, you kind of have the space to do it because you can introduce a pretty severe angle, and the more severe of an angle, the shorter the cut line, you'll be able to get to pass through. Tip number 2. Jamie passed this on to me because, again, now that I use my Gemini machine, I don't cut into a magic mat anymore. But Jamie has found that the magic mat is just a little bit too squishy. And so tip number 2 is to actually die cut into a hard plastic cutting plate. Whatever cutting plate came with your machine originally, use that to cut into. The reason is because the magic mat, when the rollers, exert pressure over top of this cutting plate, what happens is that it's just gonna push this down, and with enough force, it's gonna push it down and then cut through your paper that's underneath of it. However, if what's underneath the paper has a lot of give and is squishy, then it's actually just gonna push that squishy mat or that magic mat. It's just gonna indent into the magic mat, as opposed to if you have something hard, that hard surface is gonna have some resistance. It's not gonna give into the pressure as the pressure is getting applied down onto it. And so as a result, because the hard plastic isn't gonna give any, that die has nowhere to go but clean through your paper. Whereas if you cut into something that's a little bit softer, like your magic mat, instead of cutting and then this holding firm, this kind of just caves in. And so your paper doesn't actually cut through, it just gets pushed into your magic mat. So tip number 2 is to swap your magic mat out and use a hard cutting surface. Now, I don't often use a 6-inch machine, but I know that for a lot of people, that's what they have. And so I did bring out my Bureaucraft machine here because it is a 6-inch, has a 6-inch opening. So for folks who have 6-inch die cutting machines, this die will work through your 6-inch machine. Now, one thing to be aware of is anything that has like little paper still stuck in there, definitely be sure to weed all of that out, poke all of those through so that you don't have any of those left. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is demonstrate this on my Bureaucraft machine because that's my 6-inch platform. Couple things that you can do that I've already mentioned, but let me mention a couple more. So since the name of the game is having the right amount of pressure, you could, if you needed, you could always add a cardstock shim to your plate combination. That's definitely going to help you to increase the pressure. And I don't think I'll need that on my Bureaucraft, so I'm going to leave that off, and we'll see how it does without that, but that's an option. And I've got my pattern paper here. I'll just tape this. I'm going to wrap the tape all the way around to the back, really make sure it's nice and secure. And just like I mentioned, you want to put this at a little bit of an angle. So I'll put it this way just so that you can see, but I'm going to have to flip it the other way because this top plate is the cutting edge. So you want to angle this so that it's still going to fit on your platform between both plates, but it just introduces that slight angle so that we don't have that speed bump, and that way we can get the pressure really concentrated on shorter segments of the cut lines. So just something like that. And then I will run this through my Bureaucraft. Now I'm going to run it through my Bureaucraft on the Bureaucraft machine and the Gina K machine. They have this dial where you can increase or decrease the pressure. I'm just going to leave it at 0 just to see how this does without anything extra other than the angle. But the one thing I will do that's a little bit extra is I will pass this through one way. So I'm gonna roll this through in one direction. I'm not gonna take it out, but I will make sure that it actually goes through all the way so I can feel it. And then I will reverse it back out. So basically this will cut twice. It'll have two passes through the machine. And since we haven't moved anything, nothing's going to shift on us. And so the die, it's taped down pretty well anyways. So it should cut through okay. But there you can see, well, that part has the tape. So let's get the tape removed and we'll see how this did. So, oh, this has a little bit of tape here. Okay. This has a little tape there. So there's a little bit here of this banner that didn't cut all the way through, right on the edge. Might have been that this was just hanging a little too close to the edge, so it wasn't completely under my top plate. So that part technically didn't cut all the way through. But if this was hanging off the edge even just a little bit, then it's not too surprising that didn't make it through. So let's see. I need my pokey tool to poke all of these pieces out. So there. So this was just running it through. I didn't add a cardstock shim at all. But I did run it through twice. Just forwards and back. And look, pretty much, nope, there's one more piece. Pretty much everything cut through. Looks like this is the only thing that didn't cut through. And if you look at the die, that's almost like kind of dead center. So it's quite possible that's sort of the weakest part of the rollers. And so no problem. I will just kind of set this back in, make sure it really locks in place so that we don't like trim off more than we want. But that feels like it's pretty well locked in. If you're worried about it budging, you can just put a little bit of tape, secure that down, and then I'll pass this through another time. So, and if it helps, like I said, if you have the Beercraft machine, you can always increase the pressure a little bit, and that might avoid this little bit having to go through a second, or I guess technically a third time. So you could do that. Maybe if I had used that cardstock shim that I showed earlier, maybe it would have cut through completely with that. It probably would have, because that would increase the pressure. But now that there's less paper to contend with, just feeding it through without any extra shims or anything, but I still had it go through at an angle, and sometimes that helps too. If you pass it through the one time, I'm gonna exaggerate the angle. If you pass it through like this the first time, and maybe it didn't catch, this section, or some section didn't cut all the way through, the next time maybe try to tilt it the opposite way. And then that way it's coming at it at a different direction and exerting different pressure, so that it might have a better shot at cutting through without having to go through an extra time. So if you want to see, I'll do it again just so that you can show what this would have happened, or what would have happened if we just had this go through once with maybe a cardstock shim. So let's see. These, by the way, are from the Rustic Christmas paper pad, which is just gorgeous. So let's get this tape down as well. And this time I am going to use a cardstock shim. I would normally on the Beercraft, I wouldn't use a cardstock shim. I would actually use the dial, but I know not everybody has a machine that actually lets you adjust pressure that way. So I want to give you tips that that everybody can use, not just folks who have like a very specific machine and its specific features. So here's just a bit of cardstock. It's pretty thick. I think that's 120 pound. You might have to experiment to see what works for you. If it's too much pressure, it might not go through your machine. If it's not enough, you might have to still roll it through twice. But let's see how this fares. So again, I've got a little bit of an angle. So the only thing that I've changed is that just shifted on me. The only thing I've changed is I've added a cardstock shim to this, but I'm still putting my die, positioning my die so that it's got a little bit of an angle introduced. And then I'm going to roll this through. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to roll it through forwards once, and then I'm going to backwards roll it once this is passed through all the way. And essentially, it's going to end up cutting it, or passing it through twice. So there, it's cleared the edge. So now I'm going to roll it back through again. And, let's see how this does. The first time did pretty well even without the shim. It cut through pretty much everything but like a maybe 1.5 inch section or so. So, okay, that popped out pretty quickly. I've got the tape, a little bit of tape here, a little bit of tape here. Okay, so this came cleanly off. And let's see. It's really the inside because everything cut the first time too. Except for where the big square and the little square met up. That's where we had, oh look, so see, that came through. So this already is better than that first pass. And that's just with extra cardstock shim. And I must have done a better job lining this up because even the banners like cut all the way through. Because I did have to snip a little bit on that first one where I don't think I had it quite covered all the way. But there you have it, all the pieces cut out. So if you want a little bit of extra insurance, maybe add the cardstock shim. But you can try it without first. I would definitely recommend, because the more thickness, especially if you're using a manual machine, the harder it's going to be on you. Like the more muscle you kind of have to put in to roll it through completely. But you can see with just the addition of a single sheet of cardstock, and you might need that just based off of what you're cutting initially, because if you use maybe thinner paper than the Not Too Shabby cardstock, you might need an extra cardstock shim just to have enough thickness. Not Too Shabby pattern paper is a pretty nice weight cardstock, and so that's why this cut through almost 100% just the first time without anything more than just, putting this at a little bit of an angle and rolling it through twice. I think rolling it through twice definitely helps. So hopefully those tips help you to cut your Easy Wonder dies a little bit more successfully. And I know that the few people who have had negative things to say, it was really about, how can they get this to cut more consistently. And when Jamie has shared with them those tips, it has resolved their issues. So I want to make sure that I'm passing those tips from Jamie along to you as well, because I don't generally use my Barocraft machine. I use my Gemini machine, and I've just never had any issues with it. But that might not be a fair test just because not everybody has an electric machine that has the pressure of a Gemini. All right, so I hope this has been helpful, and if you have other tips and tricks that you would like to share, please do leave them in the comments below. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day.